Hi. So you want to make a pinch pot. Here's what you need. You need your clay, you need some water, and you need a device to score and slip sometimes. We'll talk about that later. I'm going to use a pen when I need it. I might not need it for this one today though. To make a pinch pot, you grab your clump of clay, and a new clump of clay usually won't have any air pockets in it, but sometimes it might have air pockets. Air pockets are bad. Air pockets explode when they are in the kiln. You see, the kiln fires the clay at around 5,000 degrees, and that's pretty hot. So when the air expands, it has no place to go. The molecules move really fast and really fast and really fast, and then boom, they have to go somewhere and they explode. So we don't want those air pockets. So what we do to start is we are going to knead the clay. Not knead it like I need to have it, but knead it like dough. What you do is you take your palm, you put it down on the clay, and you take the other palm and you push down, okay, till it flatten it. Then you take the clay, fold it over, and push down to flatten it. Okay, a couple of times you're going to knead it. Now the clay might start sticking to your plastic tray, so you need to kind of gather it up and push it down. Now, another thing that you can do, the clay will from time to time get pretty, start to separate a little bit, and it'll get hard. And you want to keep a nice doughy mixture. There is a fine balance between how soft and wet it is and how dry it can get. You want to keep a very consistent, not wet, but kind of damp surface. So don't put too much water on. Don't let it get too dry so it starts cracking. It should never start cracking. It should keep soft and warm until you're ready to let it dry naturally. So what I'm doing is I kneaded the dough a couple of times. I'm making sure that my clay is a nice consistent texture. Forgot I need to take off my jewelry while I'm doing this. Okay, I'm kneading it. I'm working my clay. A little bit more water. I get the water by dipping my hand in the clay, and then I squeeze it. And you keep working it until it's a nice, soft consistency. Now typically, 5th graders think it's pretty fun to have their greasy, clayey, gray hands and touch somebody else with it. Please do not do that, because you'll get clay on their clothes, and the clay has a hard time getting out of the clothes. And I don't want to have to stop anybody from making their art. The clay should get really easy to work with and warm, and you're going to have to keep working it until it gets kind of warm and what we call pliable. You can move it easily by squeezing it. It's going to take some strength. If you can't do it with your hands, just by like this, you want to just keep moving it around by pushing on it, putting your weight on it. It takes a little while to just work the clay. It's going to take some effort. A little more water. See, I spilled my water there. You got to be careful about moving your tray around, because you might spill the water. Okay, a little bit more water helps. You just got to make sure you don't get it too mushy so that the clay won't have any strength to it. Okay, now I have it so that I can move it pretty easily. And I'm going to start forming my clay into a ball. Okay, and I take it and I want to get it nice and smooth into a ball. You can roll it around a little, roll it between your hands, get it into a nice ball. Kind of like making a snowball or a snowman. You got to get it all nice and rounded. Okay, and as you do, remember to keep getting a little bit of water at a time, not too much. Smooth it out, keep it moist, keep it warm. Okay. Cracks start to form, you've handled it too much without using water. If it keeps coming off on your hands and it's getting really slippery, then it's too wet. Alright, voila. We have a round ball. Okay. Now this round ball is going to become a pot. And the way to do it, we're talking about pinch pots. And the pinch means that you're kind of pinching your thumb and working it into the middle to create kind of a crater or cavity. And the idea is that you pinch and twirl, and you're pinching the outside and the inside until it gets thinner and thinner. The goal is to have the thickness of about a pencil or a centimeter, maybe the thickness of your pinky finger. Pinky finger, centimeter, somewhere between pinky finger and pencil. Okay? If it's thinner than the pencil, the clay will crack and break, and your pot will break. If it's thicker than your finger, then it's going to be so thick that it won't dry properly, and we'll have to wait much, much longer for it to dry in order for it to be able to go into the kiln. Now, as you are working it, you're going to be smoothing it out with water, because there's going to be some cracks that start to form. Okay, so keep smoothing it out. Sorry about that. Keep smoothing it out. Now, at the bottom, you're going to want to have the same thickness too. You should be able to put your fingers together and have about that thickness, about a finger width of thickness. If you get the bottom too thin, then it will break in the bottom. Okay? So don't get it too thin there. An even thickness all the way around. And you keep working it. And the best is to get a nice even rim. Sometimes it can be thinner on one side and thicker on another. If that's the case, you can get a little bit more clay and try and add it in. Again, always dipping your hands into the water and then applying it, putting it on the clay. Now, when you come to have to add more clay, if there's one area that you made too thin, then you need to use your scoring device. Scoring means making scratches or scores, and you score it to make a rough surface. So I've made some scratches on the surface there. I made some scratches right here, and I'm going to then take a piece of clay and score that clay, and then I'm going to take some water and apply it to both sides, and then I'm going to attach the two and smooth out the edges. That way it stays, we have a nice even edge to it. Okay. So that you might have to apply if you have one area that's too thin. Another trick, when you take it off of the tray, it's best to spin it as you take it off, and then it doesn't like all fall apart when you take it off. When you're getting to the point where you have the shape that you like, then you just start smoothing out the edges and making it as round as you can. And as even as you can. And sometimes I'll even kind of tap it upside down like that to get a nice flat surface, and again rounding the edges, making it nice and even. Make sure you don't get it too wet so it loses its shape. And then it's really important, again, you do not want the bottom to be too thin because then it will break. Okay. At the very end, you score your first name into the bottom. Okay. So I put my name on the bottom. That way, when it's displayed, I don't have my name appeared. I don't want you to put any designs around the edge. Sometimes pottery, you score designs around it, but trust me, it'll look best if we keep no designs, a smooth surface, and then when we put glaze on it, it's a paint that makes it look like glass. That glaze that we put on there will make it look just awesome. And we'll make it very simple, and then we will have a complete pot. So there's a 3-step process. We make our pot, then we let it dry for several days. So we make the pot and let it dry. When it's completely dry, it'll be turned from gray to completely white, and then we fire it in the kiln. We fire it in the kiln, and then we have to let it cool for a few days, and then we come back and we can paint it with glaze. And the glaze, when we paint it with glaze, it will look completely different when it comes back out, because it'll look like kind of a powdery pastel color. That's a really light color. But when it's fired in the kiln, it turns it into a very solid, dark, bright color. And so we have to make the pot, let it dry, then we fire it in the kiln, then we glaze it, and then we have to fire it again. So I guess 5 steps. And once we've fired it again, it's ready to take home. And if you do a good job with the glaze, you could even put water in it and it would hold water. But that's probably not something that you would want to do. So at this point, once you've got your name on the bottom, you have your pot evenly smoothed out, you've made sure that there's no cracks, you have a nice smooth texture, we're ready to put these pots out in the classroom on a special tray to dry for at least a week. And then next week, we can fire them in the kiln. All right. Good luck.